Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Wickman. I am one of the directors of the Ingham County Bar Association. I'm a member of the board of directors. I am the liaison for our sections as well as our educational programs chair. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our Judicial Deliberations event. We do a series of social, educational, and informational events. This is one of them. It's an informational event for our membership to get to know and ask questions of judicial candidates. Today, we're happy to have Judge Simmons, who is up for election in an uncontested election, but I'll let her get to that. I think everyone here is a member of the ICBA, but appreciate everyone's support. Going forward, we don't take any positions on any particular judicial candidates. We just offer the information for our membership so they can do whatever they feel is best when they're voting in the fall, come November here. So without further ado, thank you everyone for being here, and I will turn it over to Judge Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Wickman, and thank you for having me today. Again, I'm Judge Kristen Simmons, and I am the newest addition to the 54A District Court. It's a pleasure always to see my buddy Judge Cynthia Ward is present here today. I was appointed almost a year ago, September 2019, by Governor Whitmer to succeed Judge Clark, and did not know what I was in for before I got here, but lo and behold, a pandemic unfolded shortly after me taking the bench. But it's been a great experience thus far. Prior to taking the bench, I was the litigation manager at the Department of Corrections. And prior to that, I worked as the Attorney General in the CLE division, which is the Civil Litigation, Employment, and Elections Law, which later they separated and pulled out everybody who mainly handled litigation for the Department of Corrections, and we went to state ops. And so I worked there for a few years, did a lot of litigation, mostly in federal court. And then prior to that, I was an assistant city attorney and the legal advisor to the Lansing Police Department. I moved to Michigan from Boston, where I was born and raised, to attend law school. I fell in love and stuck around to the Lansing area. And it's a pleasure to be a part of the community. I'm active in various organizations here, the Davis-Dunning Bar Association. I'm a past president. I'm active in my local sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm a member of the Links Incorporated. I'm a member of the Ingham County Bar Association, the Women's Lawyers Association, just to name a few. But there's a list of great and wonderful organizations that I'm a part of, and I try my best to stay engaged in my community to help work with youth. I'm a youth minister / music director at my local church. I also, prior to the pandemic, was volunteering with the Y Achievers, doing training with the youth for mock trials. So I try to be very engaged in my community and try to make sure, particularly that I work with youth, because that is an intricate part of our next generation for our community. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions for Judge Simmons at this point? Remember that you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them that way, or you can message me in chat or put it in the general chat. Go ahead, sir.
Judge, I wanted to join this, and thank you, Chris, for taking the initiative to set up these registration links. I am Larry Nolan, even though it appears I'm using someone else's name. I talked to the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office today, and I had a good conversation with Colette Bordeaux about how they were going to start up in the district court. And I know you're in the district court, and I don't get down there a lot, but I was interested on how they were going to do jury trials and how they were going to do that, because they said that their criminal docket was getting so backed up that they just had to start to begin to do them. I had an attempt at doing my first trial yesterday morning with Judge McCormick, which worked out really pretty good because we were able to resolve it. But I find this may be a way of the future with Zoom. And so some of the things that Assistant Prosecutor Colette Bordeaux indicated is that they were going to have jurors meet downstairs, but they were only going to call in a certain number because they wanted them to meet 6 feet apart and socially distance and all wear masks. But she was talking about how difficult it was going to be as a trial lawyer, as a prosecutor, to try and talk to a jury with a mask on. And I think I sensed the same feeling. Will have plans been made in the Lansing District Court to go ahead with trials and jury trials? And if so, I presume everybody be wearing a mask in the courtroom. Can you give some light on that?
Yeah, I'll try to the best that I can. We currently don't have any set plans. That's something we're currently working towards. I think that the Chief Judge just yesterday did a tour of maybe an offsite facility that we were considering may be a place that we could go to do jury and paneling. We also have some additional space here in our City Hall building that we are considering as options. And Judge Ward, who's also present, she gave some great suggestions as a way that we could try to impanel and jury and using the space that we have. I think right now the goal is to try to make the best use of the space that we have here before considering going outside of the City Hall building. Again, we have City Hall chambers that's generally open and they're not holding counsel there now. So, and we've been given permission to use that if necessary. We have been triaging our visitors now through the lobby. Our City Hall is still closed to the public here in Lansing. So when we're holding like maybe our preliminary examinations and we're having various parties that are appearing, we've been trying to triage them downstairs, but also try to keep mindful of the amount of people that we have down there. Obviously, if we're going to have a jury, that brings about a whole set of other things that we need to take into consideration and keeping them separate and keeping them in a secure location. Social distancing is going to be a big thing. I don't think that any of the judges at 54A would feel comfortable with proceeding through a trial virtually. I know I personally will not do a Zoom trial. It's so many different layers of complexity that I don't think would be meaningful or beneficial to both the defense or the prosecution. So I would feel more comfortable if they were held here live and figuring out a way that where we can separate jurors so that they can feel safe. And yes, we will absolutely be requiring masks to be worn. We haven't had much of a problem at any of our other hearings. Obviously, when you're dealing with a trial, you're talking about an extended period of time where a mask is going to be worn by a prosecutor. And that's something we would have to take into consideration if it makes more sense for us to find additional space so that we can give the prosecutor an opportunity to remove their mask if it's becoming, such an issue that they're not able to function or form in the way they can because they're wearing the mask for a long period of time. I understand though the mask can get, if you're breathing and you're trying to talk a lot, even from the bench, I find it more often when I'm doing arraignments. It's a lot. Sometimes you inhale and you inhale the mask. So I can imagine a prosecutor who's, going to be putting forth a lot of information and a lot of direct evidence and cross-examination while they're wearing a mask. That could get taxing. Maybe it's just something where we take more breaks. I'm not sure, but we're still definitely working out our plan on how we're going to move forward. And hopefully we will be moving forward with some trials the end of September, maybe October, I think is our goal.
Yeah, I think as a defense attorney or as a plaintiff's attorney in the civil case, for doing it one way for 45 years, I'm finding it difficult to switch up. And so I do not mind the adjournments at all, but eventually I know I'm going to have to pay the piper. But I, as a trial lawyer, I find it very difficult to do a trial. In fact, I had a trial scheduled, and I told the judge that I just didn't feel that I could go forward where it would be fair to my client in representing her by Zoom, and that if we could delay it. And I think he was upset. And I just said, I can't help it, but I'm in that category where I'm going to wear a mask and I'm going to wear gloves unless I'm on Zoom in the courthouse. And I don't want to take that chance of contracting because I'm in that high risk category. And so it's challenging from the defense bar or the plaintiff's bar in regards to civil actions to try cases by the computer. Although I find necessity is a mother of invention. That's what I'm told. And nobody knew about Zoom before probably March 1st. And as soon as Gretchen gave the okay to lock down on the 16th, I think, of March, everybody found out how to use it in a hurry. And it's really been quite beneficial. And I appreciate the courts allowing us to do an arraignment by Zoom where we don't have to physically go in. I've gone from my house to the office, from my office to the house, and I've been real strict. My wife has too, about not eating anything from fast food, not going out to dinner, not exposing yourself. And if you don't have it now, you're only going to get it if you expose yourself somewhere. And I know at Cooley, I was going to say that we would be happy to offer up the courtroom up there where there would be more advantage to have people distance themselves. But we're not even letting people into the building now. And we don't have any classes scheduled. All classes are virtual starting in the fall. And so even President McGrath has only been in the building. He operates from home by Zoom. He's only been in the building a couple of times, and that way we're able to secure and make sure that it's safe as far as contamination. But it's a massive undertaking when you think of having to have some, type of service come in and wipe everything down. That's not a normal thing. After you finish at 5 o'clock, you go home and you come back the next morning, you start up. But I mean, wiping the jury box down, all the chairs and everything else. I'm just wondering, has there been any direction from the state court administrator's office in regards to guidance in this regard?
And when you're saying this regard, are you referencing restarting of jury trials or?
Yeah.
Obviously, the goal is to administer justice and to try to do the most that we can, but also taking into consideration public health and safety. There still is a global pandemic. And so I think the guidance has been until we can move into the phase of a restart where it's safer for us to do or considered safer for us to move forward, we would need to get a prior approval, appropriate approval, before we can move forward with trials. And then obviously that approval would come with them understanding our outline, a plan of how we're going to proceed and how we would ensure reasonable methods are being employed to make it safe to have jurors in the building to hold jury trials. And so I think that's part of what we've been trying to work towards for the next month or so, to get started with jury trials into maybe September and into September, October, because right now we're not in the next phase. We haven't been pushed forward to the next phase to go ahead and just restart all of our jury docket at this point. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Judge Ward, because I do have you there. And I know that she has been giving some great ideas about how we can restart.
All right, I think I saw Judge Ward nodding along that yet they have not been approved for the next step. Mr. Nolan, do you have any follow-up questions, or do we have any other questions? Looks like Judge Ward unmuted herself.
Oh, I was just unmuting to say that Judge Simmons is correct. That's all.
I just wonder, Judge McCormick, obviously the physical parameters of the circuit courts it's just a fact they're bigger than the district court. So from that standpoint, I think you can spread people out more. And when I went in front of Judge Maurer, there was nobody else in the courtroom. He came out with a mask on. The court reporter came out with a mask on. The court officer and the law clerk came out with a mask. And we were 20 feet apart. We had one witness to the far left, one witness to the far right in the front, one the same in the back. And so we had plenty of room, but I know that there's, in the district courts, it's a little closer situation. But I love practice, but I just, at this point, I'm sitting there thinking I've done everything I need to do. I don't need to die in a courtroom by catching COVID. And so it may sound like I'm a little paranoid, but I probably would withdraw from a case if I was ordered by a judge to come to trial, in a jury trial at this point, just because I've had a heart situation, I've had diabetes, I'm 71, and I'm going in for a hip surgery replacement here in a week. But I just, I look at it and say it's not worth the risk. And you may find that lawyers saying this, it's not worth the risk to try a case and contract the disease, even if you got the greatest client in the world. I would think I would hesitate, and I don't. Judge McCormick, you've got a bigger situation in terms of size of the courtroom, but have there been discussions with the judges? Because I know I got a trial coming up in front of Judge Demo, and he's telling me that we're just going to keep bumping it back, and I said that's fine.
Yes, the courtrooms are bigger, obviously, over here than they are in the city of Lansing. So I appreciate Judge Simmons and Judge Ward's comments about that, because they have a tight situation up there on the 6th floor of City Hall. But over at the courthouse at Veterans Memorial Courthouse, they are redoing the courtrooms. Judge Aquilina's has already been redone. Judge Kennedy's is been done, and he is picking a jury today, is my understanding. And then Judge Dragonchuk's courtroom is going to be done next. And what they're doing is they're moving counsel tables. So the courtroom looks totally different. And they're moving the chairs, and where there's going to be very limited public seating, and that they'll Zoom the jury, the whole jury trial from another location, so that people can be in the courthouse watching the jury trial, because there's not going to be any room for any additional people besides the victim and maybe a member of the defendant's family for a criminal case. So they are in the process of redoing the courtrooms. The 3rd floor courtrooms are bigger than the family division courtrooms. So when we need a jury, we're going to go up to their courtroom, and we're just going to all share. So we're not redoing every single courtroom, but we are have more space. But for the criminal cases, you have to pick like 14 jurors, and on the felony cases, and that is going to be, you know, how they place everyone and put everyone. There is a very good plan to keep everyone safe. They are calling in less jurors so that they can practice social distancing, and then social distancing in the courtroom, and everyone will wear masks and less speaking. So it is, it's a definite change, and I think it's a long-term change, because we have to follow the CDC guidelines, and this is a pandemic, and we're still in phase 2. So you have to be in phase 3 before SCIO says you shall do jury trials. So under phase 2, you can ask for permission. And Judge Kennedy asked for permission because of the nature of the cases. There's people that have been sitting incarcerated, need to be heard. And in order to get those cases moved, they have asked for permission, and it's been granted. But for my cases, the family division cases, I'm going to wait until we're in phase 3. Because then the health department has said, you know, you can move to the next level, and the numbers are going down. Obviously, we had the outbreak at Harper's, so that set us back. So I think the intent of the family division, or at least my intent, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but is to wait till we're in phase 3 to do any jury trials. But they are starting to do them upstairs. And practice social distancing, and they've moved the counsel tables, and the courtroom looks completely different.
So when you say that, Judge, is that mean that the jury will be in a different location, but on Zoom, watching the trial being tried with the attorneys and the witnesses in the
No,
court?
jury's going to be in the courtroom.
Okay.
Judge Aquilina did one jury selection using Zoom, but then they came into the courtroom for the rest. Judge Kennedy's doing his jury selection in the courtroom. It's just going to take longer because you're only going to bring up the 14 jurors to sit, and then you have to go through all the questioning. And then there's some discussion that maybe they'll use a jury assembly room on the first floor to Zoom some of the proceedings. So, and it's getting them up here too, because not everyone wants to walk the steps, and then you can only put one person in an elevator at a time, and there's only 2 elevators. So there's just some strategic things that have to be worked out, and just having people feel safe. I know that jurors coming in, there's a whole questionnaire that they fill out. If they don't feel safe, they can get, if they have a pre-existing condition, and they fill out the questionnaire, they could be excused immediately, and then they'll call the jurors, and they're only calling 35 in. So if you go through all those jurors, you're going to have to wait till they get another set of jurors here the next day. So it's going to be a much slower process to do a trial, especially on a capital case when you have even more preemptory challenges. So there's a lot to consider to get a felony case done, and make sure that it's fair to everyone. And that people's rights are being preserved. So there's just a lot of things that we're trying to work through the details. They have the chairs situated every 6 feet. The administration has been great here. They've been having their tape measures. They measure to make sure that it's all 6 feet apart. So they've been trying to do those things to protect everyone. But it's going to be interesting to see how it works out and how much longer it takes, but it's definitely going to take longer because to impanel the jury. Once you get the jury impaneled, then you can pretty much proceed like normal. But it's really the impaneling of the jury where we've had some stumbling blocks with social distancing and making sure the courtroom's safe.
I was actually, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, because I was going to say, I was going to ask about how you all were handling if people didn't feel comfortable, or if they had, like Larry Nolan shared, some pre-existing issues or high risk. So it's good to hear that you all are allowing people to be.
Yeah, and there's a questionnaire that they're filling out before they even get here. And
Okay.
so Gloria is working with people on all of those issues. And so we don't want anyone to come here if they're concerned or they don't feel comfortable or not safe, because even if they could be completely healthy, but taking care of someone who is very high risk, and they don't want to go back and forth to the courthouse. So it is important to all the judges that people are safe, and they have put together a very good questionnaire on that.
And
Can
if
I ask?
Go ahead, Judge.
Sorry. I was just going to ask one more question along the lines of, with school going hybrid or remote, like how is your court going to deal with the juror that has a kid that's in school and they're doing remote learning?
Well, and I think that's not just for jurors. I mean, I think that's for witnesses that are just coming for a regular case. There's been a lot of things I'm sure you and Judge Ward have seen on Zoom that you wouldn't normally see in a court hearing.
Right.
So I think that we have to all be flexible, and we all have to be willing to say we're going to work around people's schedule and be reasonable with what their situation is, because everyone is struggling. I mean, no matter whether it's going to the grocery store, staying home and not going to the movies, I mean, it's tough for everyone. And I have just tried to be very flexible and understanding with people so that I work around their schedule. So we had the furlough days, we had to work around people's schedule. I think that sometimes if we just get other options, do hearings at a different time, which works for everyone. I think we have to be really flexible and be willing to move our schedules around to accommodate everyone so that they can have a hearing, and the kids are going to be in the background. When is a good time that maybe you could have someone watch the kids? Those are all valid problems for not just jurors, but witnesses too. And it's been difficult with childcare not open. And I think we've just had to be flexible. I know I am. I can't speak for everyone, but I try to work out those issues at the pretrial if there's problems or concerns. But going back to school virtually was not anyone's thought a month ago. And I think that, and I have adult kids, and I'm very happy that I have adult children right now. So, because that is a concern, especially when they're younger and they're in the house. So we've just been trying to work around it and do hearings at different times and just see how we can be flexible so that we can still move the docket, but also be mindful of everyone's concerns.
And I try to keep out of these discussions, but I have something to offer here. So Monday, actually, Mr. Nolan, the criminal defense law section, had a webinar through Zoom about with the attorneys who ran that first jury trial in Aquilina. So they did jury selection via Zoom. Judge Aquilina was good about dismissing anyone with cause who was concerned about COVID and things like that. And then they had people come in. There's an article in the LSJ that shows a little bit of the pictures. They had 6 jurors in the jury box. They had other 6 distributed through the back right corner, if you're familiar with Judge Aquilina's courtroom.
Right.
They had 6 back there, and they had, I think, another 2 spread out. They had plexiglass in front of the jury. They had plexiglass in front of the judge, court reporter, witness. The individuals who were questioning, both the prosecutor and the defense, had face shields and then a cloth mask. When they were questioning, they would remove the cloth mask, keep the face shield up, otherwise always cloth mask and face shield. And jurors were spread out throughout. The only corner that didn't have jurors or anyone in it, there was a gallery, was the back left corner. So I know that Clinton County, among other places, is exploring what Judge Simmons and Judge Ward were talking about, where they jury select at a bigger location. But right now, Judge Aquilina is willing to proceed forward, as well as Judge Candidate, but they have gotten permission. So, and I can chat with you a little bit more if you have questions about that. But we're moving forward slowly.
Yeah, and we do contact. We're in communication with the health department, Linda Vale, about where the county is and where they stand, so that any health issues and just even coming into the courthouse. Our courthouse is open, and so you have to be screened and your temperature taken and wear masks. And so, because people are coming in for hearings. So, but we're able to socially distance pretty easily in the courtroom because of the size of the courtroom.
Let me ask a question of Judge Ward and Judge Simmons particularly, but not to exclude you, Judge McCormick, but I know you're not doing primarily criminal stuff. You're doing the domestic, but you've done criminal in the past. And so at the initial arraignment, when the defendants are being arraigned, is there a prevailing philosophy, or have you talked about it amongst the district court judges? And I guess, Judge McCormick, if you had to find somebody in contempt, are you leaning towards not sending those people to the jail? If you can extend your parameters in which you operated previously, maybe a little stricter, where you would send them to jail? Are you opening up the lines of being a more in favor of not sending them to the jail? How has that been affected since COVID?
Well, I'm in a different situation than Judge Ward and Judge Simmons because of the cases that I handle. Most of the contempt is PPOs or parenting time, that type of thing. I will tell you that I have heard from the jail on what they're doing to protect people, and it's quite impressive. They have done a lot of really good things at the jail. When people come into the jail, the period of time that they are in isolation, so that they can make sure that if someone is positive for COVID, that they don't infect the whole entire jail. So they are taking all the precautions necessary. But for the sentences that I have been handing down for contempt, things of that nature that are normally 3 to 5 days, Larry, they're not long sentences. I'm trying to find other avenues besides using the jail for that. For one, just having someone in there for a short-term situation causes the jail to do a lot of things to protect everyone. And if there's a way that we can utilize tether or some other form of
Right.
a jail arrest, it definitely makes sense to do that right now. They're not doing work release because people can't, they're not going to have them come in and out of the jail. So that's not an option, especially if the person's working. Right now, the last thing you want anyone to do is to lose their job over a short jail sentence. So I try to take everything into consideration. Some people are already serving sentences in the jail, and so that's not really an issue. But I just try to take everything into consideration and do what I think is right under the circumstances. But my sentences are very short compared to, for the most part, to compare to probably what Judge Ward and Judge Simmons see on a daily basis. So I'll defer back to them.
I don't know that I've sentenced anyone for contempt during the pandemic. I do have some that are scheduled, some proceedings, but I've not at this point sentenced anybody. I don't know that I would make it a primary consideration, but obviously it is a consideration. I would have to look at the case by case and see what the circumstances surrounding the contempt was. Obviously, if there's an alternative way to address the concern without having someone sit in jail, then obviously that's something I would always take into consideration. But I've not had that before me at this point, except for one that we were going to do a proceeding and we were going to proceed via Zoom maybe a week or so ago. And then I reset it because he was having technical issues. So I've not had a contempt issue yet.
I know that I had a case that we've been waiting on them to issue in Eaton County, and the prosecutor called me at 4:30 today and said they issued. And I said, okay, I'll bring them in tomorrow. And they said, well, we're not open tomorrow. So the court is closed in Eaton County on Friday. So I said, well, I told him that my client's a businessman and he's going to voluntarily surrender. And I said, can I do the arraignment by Zoom? And he said, no, we don't do arraignments by Zoom, but you can come in Monday first thing. But his name and charge and everything is in the lien machine now. And I'm just kind of crossing my fingers, hoping he doesn't get picked up over the weekend, because he's got a wife and family, and he's ready to defend on the charges. But I just wondered if they pick him up. I don't, if tried to get him out of jail, his bond will, once I think it goes before one of the district court judges, that they'll set it fairly, and he'll be let go on his recognizance or a small bond. But it's just, it's heightened the difficulties in the private practice, because I go to sleep at night thinking I hope this guy doesn't get picked up, because he's going to be ripped off, because I told him that I would call the prosecutor and make arrangements. And as soon as they issue, we can go in the next day, and lo and behold, the next day is tomorrow. I don't find out about it. So we quickly got the file number, filed an appearance and demand, and we called, and at first they said it couldn't be done by Zoom, but now I think they called back and said that it could be done by Zoom, but not till Monday. So do you do arraignments by Zoom, Judge Simmons or Judge Ward?
Most of our arraignments are done virtually. We don't normally bring, even if they're in the jail, we do it virtually. We do have an issue with our particular Zoom capabilities with our city jail for some reason. I don't know if there's a block or something, but so we do proceed via Polycom mostly on those, but we proceed virtually on our arraignments.
That's good to hear. I like to find out what the other courts are doing, so I can keep up on it. But yeah, that's good to know.
And Larry, if you have specific questions on courts and what they're doing via arraignment, let me know. I've been in tons of them lately. So, and I've had to walk my clients into 54A to be arraigned. Then they just go through into the lockup session. So I've been doing it via Zoom. I'm remote, but they usually have to call me on the phone and just stick the Polycom. So my client walks in, I appear via Zoom in 54A. That's what I've experienced to date so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we gotten sidetracked. Is there other questions for Judge Simmons as a candidate for judicial office at this point.
No, I just like to compliment Judge Simmons because I know that you love what you do, and it's really great to see somebody take the bench that loves what they do. And I know Lisa and Cynthia, you do too. So it's very welcoming to the private practitioner, and the bar appreciates that, I'm sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Remember, if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. I will go ahead and ask. Judge Simmons, did you have any plans for the upcoming term if you are elected to the bench, which appears likely?
Well, coming up on my 1 year, I did tell myself that I was going to spend a year to look at my court and see what the people needed, not necessarily what I would have wanted to implement. And obviously this year has been it ran differently than I anticipated it would. So my ability to ascertain what the public needed from their court shifted. But my inclination, especially as we are now in the situation where we're going back to doing evictions, and I can't speak for the other judges, but I know my eviction docket has been heavy, and we just started 3 weeks ago. I just looked at my eviction docket for next week, and it is 3 pages long. So something along the lines of maybe some kind of eviction diversion program, which I worked on one similar as a paralegal before I went to law school. I'm thinking of trying to see what the resources would be needed to maybe implement something like that here. And I think that this community could largely benefit from some kind of programming, some eviction diversion programming that would assist. And I know that with the pandemic, there's been a lot of help. And then now we have new resources that are being utilized during our proceedings now, which also impacts the timing it takes, obviously, for us to move our docket, which is also why my docket is 3 pages long. But I find that there's a lot of people in the Lansing area that could use some help, and they don't know that the help is available. And so my next year, if reelected, and of course I'm an unopposed incumbent, so the anticipation is that I will be reelected. My plan is to try to do some work to help with the way our eviction processes are running.
That's great, and I know the 55th has had good success with their eviction proceedings and things down there prior to COVID, obviously. But other questions for Judge Simmons at this time? Remember, you can either message in chat. See, Steve's unmuted himself, so I'll shut up. Steve.
I think you just muted yourself back.
Yeah, you remuted yourself, Steve. There you
I'm
go.
sorry. No, it was my earpiece that just all of a sudden went dead right when I went to ask a question. I just was curious, Judge Simmons, if you had a position or perspective on court consolidation between 54A and 54B.
Do I have a position, you said?
Yeah. Are you are you for it, against it, neutral? Do you have any thoughts on it? It's an issue that I find to be an interesting issue within our community, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that issue.
Shortly after getting appointed, I heard some discussion one way or the other. I have some strong reservations about court consolidation, mostly due to the fact that I think that we need to really focus on making sure the community has representation from their court, the court has representation from their community. And there's other reservations that I have as well, but as of right now, at least based on the information that I've been provided, and a lot of it was not provided to me because shortly after my appointment, the talks about the court consolidation, it dissipated. And so I wasn't given, I guess, all the information that was available, but based on what I know, I would not support it.
Thank you. I find it to be an interesting issue too. Obviously it's one about resources and efficiencies and things of that nature, but we have a landscape here of different, I guess, kind of one community, but different communities. And, the way the courts deal with that is, I guess, an issue that's not easy for anybody to decide.
I have a question. I'm wondering if Mr. Sinus knows something that I may not know, because I I haven't heard any new discussions about court consolidation since Judge Simmons' appointment.
I have not heard anything myself. I always hear about it kind of through the grapevine, and it seems like some people have strong feelings about it. Some people, strong feelings about it happening. Some people obviously don't want it to happen. But I haven't heard any news about that issue for several months. So I guess I was using the forum here just to ask about it. And it's interesting that you all haven't heard anything either. I guess people have realized there are other things to worry about in our circumstances right now than consolidating our courts.
So you're not just poking the bear, Steve.
No, I'm innocently asking him the question about positions because I think it's an interesting issue, and I have nothing up my sleeve here by any means.
I think my blood pressure just went up slightly.
I felt it. I felt it, Judge.
Well, I don't even know how, the thought process of you all in terms of how it affects you. I guess I'm not quite sure the calculus that goes into that thinking too. And it seems like they could consolidate and affect judicial seats in multiple different ways. So I always knew it was this issue that many people cared a lot about for a number of years. And it just seems like it's been, something that nobody's really focused on right now.
Right. And like you said, the communities are drastically different. Their needs are different. And the pandemic, if you didn't think there were other issues that we need to address, the pandemic probably opened the eyes that there's other issues that should be at the top of our priority list.
Right, for sure.
I think it's a great question. I'm glad Steve asked it and not me. Anyone else have questions?
I'm sorry for any, rise of blood pressure or whatever. It's all good. Nothing to worry about.
Anyone else have questions for Judge Simmons? Remember, you can go ahead and just ask, or you can message me or put it in chat and I can ask for you. I know we have a shy bunch here, but just
I don't have a question, but I guess I want to share with, it probably is no surprise to those who are joining us currently, but those who may view later, that it has just been absolutely wonderful having Judge Simmons as a member of this bench. She has great energy. She has a depth of experience. I always tell her that she doesn't even seem like a new judge to me anyway. So it's just really wonderful having this this thought partner. And you have what, 9 months? 9 months. I have 9 months on you. So we're still in the same sort of new judge zone, but she's far ahead. So I just wanted to share with those who may be watching that it's been great having her on the bench. She's bright. She's hardworking. She's just fun to be around. I can't be around her now. I mean, we went through periods every single day. We made sure we saw each other, and then it had to stop because of COVID. Like Mr. Nolan, Judge Simmons and I have been just very strict in, respecting social distancing, et cetera. So, we'll pick up the phone even though I know she's around the corner. So I really miss having the connection that we had when she joined, and I look forward to having that connection again. But for those of you who've not had an opportunity to either appear before Judge Simmons or really get to know Judge Simmons, she's wonderful. She's been a wonderful colleague.
It's nice that you say that, but I would say that people are aware of the respect that is shown between the judges on the court now. It's a lot different, even at the Supreme Court level, it's a lot different now. And maybe in a crisis that helps, but certainly, I've heard people talking about Judge McCormick and the other judges, and I think they feel the same way over there. And it's nice from a practitioner standpoint to appear before a judge, win, lose, or draw, to have their matter heard and know that they enjoy the people they work with and they enjoy the work they're doing. And so I think, Cynthia, that's wonderful. But I think you can tell when you go into the courthouse that you have the respect for Kristen and that she has the same for you. It's nice to go in there every once in a while and know that it's a pleasant place. And I think that out in Mason with Rick Hillman, the new judge out there, Rick has got rave reviews from the people I talk to, which are normally are the practitioners.
Mhm.
So.
And I usually don't take a position on behalf of ICBA, but it's been said multiple times. I think we have a great bench in Ingham County, and I know that the ICBA appreciates all our judges who do participate, including 3 here, 2 of which didn't even have to be here. So we very much appreciate it. And I guess Ms. Judge Simmons didn't have to be here either, but so we definitely appreciate our judges. Other questions?
I was hoping maybe Judge Simmons might share a secret or something I didn't know. So I said, I definitely have to pop on.
Yeah, right. A secret.
I think that was a question. Is would you share a secret? Is Judge Ward's question.
Well, she said a secret she didn't know, and so I don't even know that I have one of those. So we talk pretty candidly. So
Yes.
I don't have one.
Yes. You know, to Mr. Nolan's point, so Judge Buchanan and I are on the same end, and I realize I've been taking for granted the position of my office to her office because, we're just really busy and we can go a couple days and not even run into each other. I think Judge Buchanan has her own restroom in her chambers and I have a restroom, so we don't even encounter each other in the restroom. And I realized with COVID-19 that I've been taking for granted our positioning because I miss her. I just miss seeing everyone. Yeah. I just, we have our regular Zoom meetings, we stay connected, but, so things are going to change once. I mean, she probably won't let me go hug her or something every day, but once we're able to be closer than 6 feet, things are going to change and just things I shouldn't just take for granted, for sure. Yeah.
But I did watch you via Zoom today, though.
Okay. Thank you. So to Mr. Nolan's question, you saw me probably put 3 people in jail, but that's okay. I try to find ways to keep people out, but sometimes it just doesn't, doesn't work that way.
Well, and it's got to be a tough decision because obviously you don't want to put someone in that may contaminate the whole inmate.
Correct.
And still have respect even they're serving a sentence for a criminal act. I mean, you don't want those people to get sick if you can prevent it.
Correct. And like Judge McCormick, I contacted the Ingham County Jail for a particular situation and got some information that really informed my decision. So I made a slight modification to my sentence based upon the information that I received from the Ingham County Jail. But it's, it's never sort of a first recourse. I mean, you really try, but honestly, sometimes, our hands are tied.
Right.
Because we also have to keep the community safe. And I think everyone here knows I run a domestic violence court.
Other questions for Judge Simmons? I'm hearing none, so I'll offer to Judge Simmons for if she would like to make any closing remarks, and then I can turn off the recording and people are welcome to stay and chat as they feel appropriate. So Judge Simmons, anything final you'd like to say?
No, I really enjoyed this discussion. I hadn't had an opportunity to speak with Lisa McCormick or Larry Nolan in a while, so it's good that we were able to engage and find out what's going on in circuit court and how they're moving, because these are ideas that we can, take to our next meeting as we're trying to plug away and figure out how we can restart. But this was a great and wonderful conversation. I'm glad that I was invited to participate, and I'm also excited to continue as your 54A District Court judge. So vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge Simmons, for joining us. I appreciate everyone who was able to be here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but as I said, everyone's welcome to hang around and chat more if they'd like. I know we all have obligations as well, so I'm not going to take offense, but thank you, everyone, and thank you to Judge Simmons, and take care.